So we're going to start with a generic question. What is psychology? Don't open your textbooks or Google it or anything. I just want you to take a minute to kind of think to yourself what it is when you think of psychology. What is it that you picture? Is it that you think psychology does or psychologists does, what it studies, what the career paths within psychology might be? Many of you might be thinking of research in psychology about, say, education, development psychology with children. You might be thinking about clinical applications of psychology, psychologists who help people deal with mental health issues. You might be thinking of some of the machines that now peer into the brain and let us see activity occurring in real time. There are many things you might be thinking about when you're thinking about what psychology is. Any textbook or Google definition of psychology is going to be some iteration of the following: that psychology is the scientific study of the human mind and behavior. There's a lot to unpack here. This phrase scientific is something that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about next week. Terms such as the mind and behavior also deserve to be unpacked. We are definitely going to be taking a closer look at this definition and this idea, but broader, I want to pull back a little bit. I want us, at least for today, to think about psychology more about how it is the study of you. Okay, I mean, not you as a singular individual, right? Psychology is not dedicated to solving you as a person, but rather psychology is dedicated to solving us as individuals, right? Psychology is the study of us as people. How we think about the world, how we respond to the world, how we understand the world, what motivates us, right? Our likes, our dislikes, why they are the way they are, how they work, how they emerge from us. It is an understanding of what makes you, you. At its core, what we are is the story we tell ourselves. Human beings are storytellers. We love to tell stories to each other. We have built whole societies and cultures and personal identity. Our countries themselves are defined by the stories we construct. We are dedicated to the story. And ultimately, your whole understanding of reality itself, understanding your mind and your behaviors, is understanding you are a storyteller. The world as you perceive it, the world as you understand it, the world as you view it, is not the real world. Right? You are constructing a story of your reality that you're telling yourself moment to moment. How you construct that story determines your view of your role in that story, your actions, your views of other people, and how other people construct their story in turn determines their views and their actions. Now, when you think about it, how do we gain access to the world? We as human beings, as biological entities, how do we even begin to perceive of the world? Right? Well, it comes through our vision, our touch, our taste, right? The sensation of temperature, of pain. Right? It comes through our senses. Our senses are the gateway of our understanding of the world. But our senses themselves filter out information only within a tiny, narrow range. Our eyes, our ears, our taste buds, our touch receptors can only detect certain parameters around the world, right? If we think about vision, we have what's called the visual light spectrum, which is actually a tiny part of the light spectrum. We start moving into ultraviolet or infrared. There is more light out there, more light waves out there that we can't see than that we can see. Right? So even our visual understanding of the world, which we hold sort of sacrosanct as kind of, what reality is a tiny, narrow perspective. It's being filtered even at that sense core. But even as we pull those raw senses in, we are not merely a recorder to those raw senses, but instead we combine them together, we filter them out, we process them to create a perception. Right? Our perception is our understanding of what our senses are receiving. Right? Even our raw sensory information is not something that we directly access. Instead, we have our perception of what we are sensing. Our senses are filtering the world, constructing a story. Our perceptions further filter it. And then how we come to understand what our perception means is our working model of the world, right? This is the ultimate story that we construct of what our reality is. And it's based on what's happening right now, as well as our prior experiences, and they come together to dictate how we form our understanding of what's happening. That working model is our sense of reality of ourselves, of our environment, of other people, but it is a highly filtered version of it that's constructed around our prior experiences and our limited perceptual and sensory systems. Yet from this working model, this story we tell ourselves of reality, this is what determines our decisions and ultimately what determines our behavior. Where things get even crazier is each individual human has a different sense, perception, and working model, which further alters their decision-making and behaviors. And if we're going to understand not only ourselves, but other people, we have to break down this concept of the story. Psychology is a study of how we construct our story of reality, both as individuals and more broader as a species, in an attempt to understand and predict why we do the things we do, why we think the things we think. For many people, this idea that our working model of the world has nothing to do with reality can be off-putting, right? We tend to rely heavily on our working model of the world, the story we tell ourselves of the world, being true, being reality. If it's not reality, what are we even doing, right? So even kind of maybe overcoming that hump to realize that there are lots of things that can change our perception of reality to reflect a world that doesn't actually exist is kind of that first hurdle we have to reach. And so in the next video, let's explore that a little bit. Let's see if we can't demonstrate that your reality that you perceive is not actually the reality that's out there.